Well, the Russians have brokered a ceasefire in Nagorno-Karabakh, slash Artsakh. Everybody has to have their own name for these things. It's not like Kosovo, where at least everybody calls that Kosovo. I don't think the Albanians have a special word for that. But anyway, that's beside the point. For now, the killing has taken a pause. People are not dying. And, that's a good thing. I'm glad that the Russians were able to do this. I don't know how long it's going to hold. I don't think anybody has, high hopes that this is certainly going to lead to a permanent peace or anything like that. But at the very least, for the people that live there, this is a pause in the carnage. They can try and take a couple minutes to, sort of come out of their bunkers, if they even have bunkers, and look around, survey the damage, try and clean some stuff up, find out if your family's still alive, because it's impossible not to pity people caught in the middle of this sort of thing, especially when they feel that one side or the other is going to kill them, or their lives are going to be ruined if the other side wins. Because really, questions of borders and things should not be settled with violence. A war over a border dispute is counterintuitive as far as I'm concerned, and that's really because I come from the the tradition of Ludwig von Mises and his treatise that he wrote after World War I. Mises, of course, was an Austrian, and the empire from which he hailed had a lot of ethnic minorities. Actually, pretty much everyone in Austria was an ethnic minority. And each of these groups had different interests and things, and they wanted to be their own country and such. And his perspective on that question was, if people don't want to be a part of your state, then they shouldn't be. You don't fight a war to defend your borders. Borders shouldn't be something that people are so passionate about. Unless it has to do with where you live. And so, it's kind of the same idea, but going back to sort of the Thomas Jefferson and the American founding fathers, that people have a right to consent or not consent to their government, and the consent of the governed is what makes a government legitimate. And Mises expanded upon that idea and said that that comes down to the shape of the different territories and things. If a particular part of a state wants to separate from that state and form a new one, or separate from that state and join another state, then that is their right. The only people who get to decide who governs a certain territory are the residents of that territory. And so it just doesn't make sense to fight a war over something like that. If a group of people in a certain territory don't want to swear their loyalty to your government, fighting a war against them or their allies is not going to change their mind. And if you're concerned about, let's say, a minority within that territory who does not want to separate from the larger state, in this case, I'm trying to remain abstract as possible, but in the case of Nagorno-Karabakh, this was a province of Azerbaijan when they were part of the Soviet Union, and it was I believe, like 80% Armenian. Well, presumably, the reason why the Azeris and the government of Azerbaijan is so concerned with taking back this territory is that, they don't want their Azeri people within this territory to be removed from the protection of their government. They don't feel like it's the right of the Armenians living within that territory to separate these people from their government. And my response to that would be, well, if it depends on how concentrated this population is. If, let's say, geographically, one quarter of Nagorno-Karabakh is a largely Azeri culturally and ethnically, well, then those people should probably not be a part of a separate Nagorno-Karabakh that is more closely aligned with Armenia. That part of the territory should stay with Azerbaijan, no matter how small. But if those people, let's say it's 80-20, let's say it's 20% is area in Nagorno-Karabakh, if they're spread out evenly across the entire territory and they live amongst Armenians with seemingly no problems, then there's no reason why those people should be holding back this territory, which is super duper majority Armenian, from being a part of Armenia or being independent if they want. There's no reason for this territory to be a part of Azerbaijan, no more than there is a reason why the city of New York should be a part of Israel just because Jewish people happen to live there. It's not a Jewish majority city. There's a lot of other people that live in New York, and even amongst the Jews, those people, don't really want to be a part of Israel. And so if a supermajority of a territory, certainly, or I would say even a slim majority, let's say 60%, if they don't want to be a part of Azerbaijan or Serbia or whatever the country is we're talking about, Iran, they should be able to peacefully separate themselves, withdraw their consent from the central government without any fear of reprisal. A war to prevent a territory from seceding, to me, is just as wrong as a war of aggression to try and conquer a territory that a state doesn't currently control. The Israelis, constant onslaught and siege of the West Bank and Gaza, trying to turn those two territories into purely Israeli territories, to me is just as bad as when Iran, stops their Arab minority areas from seceding from Iran. If we're not going to pretend like we're living in the age of empires anymore, if we're going to say that we're in this, more modern democratic age, well then governments have to act like it. They have to, they can't try and govern over people who want nothing to do with them. So with all that said, I hope this war can get over quickly and done. I think that this, this whole idea that because Nagorno-Karabakh was a part of Azerbaijan in the past, that it must be a part of Azerbaijan in the future, sort of this, I guess, post-1945 geopolitical philosophy that, borders can never change, and that, whatever the borders looked like in 1945 must stay that way, in perpetuity, is just nonsensical. If you as a state tries to govern an area which does not consent to and does not recognize your authority, then you're nothing more than an occupying army. And that was certainly the case here in the United States after the Civil War. Reconstruction, as it's euphemistically referred to, was just a period of military occupation of the South. And to say that, well, those states were part of the United States for 80 years at that point, 80, 90 years, that doesn't make military occupation okay. So, while my hopes are not too high, I do genuinely hope that a resolution can be reached over this whole Nagorno-Karabakh issue at some point. And at least the Russians seem to be trying. I don't know how successful they're going to be, but a ceasefire is a step in the right direction. Now, with that said, if you gained anything of value out of this video, I'd appreciate you clicking that like button and sharing this video. And if you haven't already, please do subscribe, because I do upload every day and I'd hate to have you miss one. So I'll see you folks back here tomorrow.